Why, hello there. Big news this morning in the world of Bitcoin. Obviously, we have the conference going on. That's what everyone knows. But in this video, I'm going to talk about something that just was revealed this morning that I personally care about because it has to do with the state at which I'm from, which is Michigan. The state of Michigan this morning, just a couple hours ago, per an SEC filing, announced that they have purchased $6.6 million worth of Bitcoin ETF as of June 30th of this year. Now, at the time, the price of Bitcoin was about $65,000 or so. Now, the price of Bitcoin is about $68,000. So the price of Bitcoin is up about 8% since June 30th. Now recording this in now late July here. So that means that the state of Michigan's retirement plan. Oh, hey, we have a legend over here. How you doing? Good to see you. I'm filming a video. Did you know that the state of Michigan just bought $7 million worth of Bitcoin this morning?
Know that.
Yeah. Well, it's happening. All right, I'll see you at the conference. Yep, bye. So I like that because I'm from Michigan. Now, in Michigan, there are 10,041,000 citizens in Michigan. So that means that if you divide it out equally, if you divide it out all the way, you get about 71 cents worth of Bitcoin per citizen. Now, of course, that's just, a thought experiment. That's not actually true, right? Not every person in Michigan now magically owns 70 cents worth of Bitcoin. That's not actually how it works. In reality, it's very different, obviously, because number one, it's an ETF. It's not self-custody. It's the ARK ETF specifically. Cathie Wood's ETF. Cathie Wood is here. I think Cathie Wood's speaking later today. I don't know. But anyway, this is her ETF we're talking about, the ARK Invest ETF that the Michigan's state retirement plan purchased. And so the question I'm thinking, now that we have Michigan getting off zero here, is who's next, right? Obviously, there are many states that are still ahead of Michigan, right? Michigan did not magically pull ahead just now. Obviously, Wisconsin is still way farther ahead than Michigan. Many other states in different aspects and in different units of measure are farther ahead than Michigan. Some that come to mind are Wyoming, Florida, North Carolina, Texas, Tennessee, Tennessee, and Kentucky. All of those states, in my mind, are still significantly farther ahead than Michigan, but I think it's still pretty interesting. Now, to me, in light of that, the question becomes, what happens next, right? By the way, security is just crazy here. There are cop cars everywhere. In fact, 1 out of 25 people at the conference is some sort of security agent, so pretty funny. That's why I'm getting there nice and early so that I can wait in line at the conference to go through security. But the question to me is, what's next, right? If the state of Michigan now has about 71 cents worth of the stuff for its people, then I think the question is, what's next, right? What happens when we go from 70 cents to $7? What happens when we go from $7 to $70, $70 to $700, $700 to $7,000, $70,000, and eventually, as we print more and more political currency, we go up to $700,000 maybe per Michigan citizen of Bitcoin being held by the state or a state retirement plan in some form or fashion, right? Which might seem crazy. It might sound outlandish right now, but I mean, again, I think it's worth keeping in mind that literally a 1,000 increase, a 1,000x in Michigan's exposure for citizens is going from 70 cents to $700. Is it unreasonable for the state of Michigan potentially in a couple years to desire roughly on average about $700 worth of Bitcoin in its strategic reserve per citizen? I think that sounds reasonable, right? I mean, $700 in a few years is going to be basically nobody's rent, right? Like, I think the state of Michigan is going to ask themselves in a few years, shouldn't we have at least 1 month's of rent on average worth of Bitcoin per Michigan citizen? I think they're going to want that. And that's literally a 1,000x in Michigan's exposure. And as I said before, most states are behind Michigan, right? There are half a dozen states or so that are ahead of Michigan, but the vast majority are behind. So not only does Michigan have to 10x to 30x to keep up with these other states probably, but they're gonna have to increase by a factor of 1,000, at least in my opinion, right? And so a lot of people, you know, hear about Bitcoin, they hear about what the future could be, they hear about all these things, and they think, oh, okay, the thing that makes sense to me, my brain, my mindset, the thing that makes to me in my mindset is maybe $1 million Bitcoin, or maybe a $3 million Bitcoin, something that makes logical, intuitive sense. And so my point in making, I guess, this video and talking about this is that it's probably not going to make intuitive sense, right? Is it reasonable? Is it intuitive for the price of Bitcoin to rise by a factor of 10 or 20 when states increase their allocations by a factor of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000? I don't think that's reasonable, right? Is it reasonable to say that, oh yeah, Michigan bought $7 million, someday they're gonna want $7 billion, that's 1,000x, and I still think that's really, really early, especially nominal terms, of course. Michigan's probably gonna have tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in coming years and eventually decades, but it's not reasonable, it's not logical to say Bitcoin's going to $1 million and then it's gonna stabilize there. Okay, at 1,000x and Bitcoin's price is $60 million. Is $60 million per Bitcoin reasonable today? No, absolutely not. Is it reasonable next week? No. What about next month? No. What about next year? No. What about 10 years from now? Extremely unlikely. But give it a long enough time horizon and you begin to realize that the kinds of orders of magnitude we're talking about with Bitcoin, we're not talking about $1 million Bitcoin. Looks like we have some Secret Service over here. Somebody important. Anyway, yeah, that's my larger point. That's why I want to make this video, is that most people think they're too late to Bitcoin. Just a couple days ago, someone was saying that they thought they were too late to Bitcoin. Oh, pizza. We had Donnie Boy up there. People think they're too late to Bitcoin, but it's like, yeah, you might think you're too late because Michigan just bought $7 million worth of Bitcoin, so you might think, oh, this is the top, this is it, that's it. And maybe if you're going off what makes sense to you, you know, with your intuition, you'd be right. But my point is that this is not going to be intuitive. This is not going to be something that makes sense to our human brains, right? That if you want to think critically and you want to view it as something that's going to be around and desirable in 30 years, not just to a million nerds online, but to a billion everyday people across the planet. I mean, if you're going to view it that way, then you have to realize that none of this is intuitive, right? These models and predictions and cycles and this and that, the other for Bitcoin just doesn't make sense. I had dinner with Gary Cardone last night. Many of you watching probably know who Gary Cardone is. You know, he's a Bitcoin, I guess, whale investor, pretty popular online. He just donated $1 million to the Trump campaign to have dinner with them, sit at the table, whatever. And you know, anyway, he's been pretty active, both in the political space and now in, you know, the Bitcoin space. But we were having dinner last night, and he was telling me about how, you know, there's 400,000 high net worth families, ultra high net worth families, with over $30 million in net worth, right? So Michigan's little buy here of $6.6 million, now $7 million, given the 8% rise in price, you know, that's still less than a third of 400,000 of these ultra high net worth families. And so if you think you're too late to Bitcoin because, oh, the state of Wisconsin's pension system bought $100 million of Bitcoin, and oh, Cynthia Lummis at the 2024 Bitcoin conference announced a treasury reserve asset for the state of Wyoming, and oh, the state of Michigan just bought $7 million of Bitcoin. Oh, I'm too late. Oh, it's like there's 400,000 families that have more wealth than the kinds of buys that these states are making. What happens when 1% of these ultra high net worth families, so that'd be 400 families, what happens when they desire and they realize, wait a minute, guys, we've got $10 million in our family war chest, right? Why don't we do something radical? Why doesn't our family preserve our dynasty and towards the increasingly digital future and smash by more Bitcoin than the entire freaking state owns, right? You know, I don't think many ultra high net worth people right now are aware that Michigan just announced this buy, right? But when they figure it out, right, let's say Bitcoin price doubles from here, it goes from $60,000 to $120,000. Let's say at that point that, you know, Michigan's holdings obviously are somewhere around $15 to $20 million total. There's gonna be families in Michigan that have wealth more than $20 million. And they're gonna say, you know, why don't we just outbuy the state real quick while we can, and let's get ahead not only our fellow ultra high net worth people, let's get ahead of the state, right? And that is the game theory of Bitcoin, right? Is that you are heavily incentivized to be an early adopter. Hey, we have another awesome guy here. Hey, we have Eric from Gridless.
I don't know who I'm talking to, but hi.
You're talking to the people.
Oh, the internet.
Yeah, you know where I'm from, right? Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you know that Michigan this morning just announced they have bought $7 million worth of Bitcoin for their retirement? State retirement
like
system.
a pension fund.
Yeah,
really?
Basically, yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
no, I had no
yeah.
idea.
So anyway,
good. Hopefully more states will follow.
Right, hopefully more states. So can you give a quick 2 cents, because I'm rambling about how states and ultra high net worth people with, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of families with, you know, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars out there in the world, right? But what Eric does here is he spearheads Gridless, and you guys, what did you say, 50,000 people you guys bring electricity for in Southeast Africa?
So in East and Southern Africa, yeah. So what we do is we go to find stranded energy. And the stranded energy, there's pockets of wasted energy in Michigan too, by the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we find these pockets of wasted energy, and we put Bitcoin mining on those wasted energy places, the stranded energy, and then can monetize that properly for the energy producer, which then decreases the cost of power for those who get the power from it. So while we do this in Africa, there's no reason it can't be done here too.
Yeah, it could totally be done in Michigan. I've been down in Kentucky at Blockworks mining sites where I work, and you know, seen it in Kentucky. So hopefully Michigan copies that. So So okay, last question for you. So Michigan now, that means on average 71 cents a Bitcoin per Michigan citizen. So I've been rambling about how I think Michigan could easily 1000x that to $700 a citizen. And likewise, we've talked multiple times before about how you think Bitcoin mining in Africa could potentially 100x just the mini grids in Africa alone. So my question to you is, if Bitcoin mining is going to 100x these African mini grids for hundreds of millions of people, and if these large nation states and high net worth individuals are going to 10x, 100x, 1000x their allocations, is it reasonable to think that Bitcoin is only going to do a 100x and go to $6 million in the long term?
God, I am the worst person to talk to about price stuff on Bitcoin. All I know is that you can have, after watching it since 2010, being you know, on the sidelines of it for many years before I got into it, there's a consistent upward curve is stable over time. There's no better investment over any 4-year period in the past 15 years than there was with Bitcoin. So like, there's no reason not to keep investing in Bitcoin and expect to see these high returns. And whether that high returns is a 5-year time horizon, a 10 or 50-year time horizon, all of them are valid when it comes to pension funds. So I think that is actually a really smart move, and the more institutions that get into this kind of stuff, the crazier it's going to get. So.
All right, great. Sorry,
I got to run.
Time. Yeah, I know. Go ahead. Yeah,
right.
Okay, see ya. Yeah. So okay, now I got to go in, and I probably should not film the security area. So anyway, that's the point. You're not too late to Bitcoin. The nation states are coming. The Michael Saylors are coming. The billionaires are coming. The ultra high net worth individuals are coming. The pension funds are coming. The states are coming. The small mom and pop corporations are coming. The world's poor are coming. Right? You know, Eric Hirschman. You know, as he was just saying, he first found Bitcoin in 2010. He went, you know, very heavily into Bitcoin in 2013, and now here in 2024, barely under a decade later, now he and his company Gridless are bringing electricity to tens of thousands, soon to be hundreds of thousands of people in Southeast Africa, and many other people are also copying him of increasing Bitcoin Treasury Reserve balance sheets, increasing Bitcoin mining, increasing the profitability of stranded energy, and ultimately it is more reasonable to say Bitcoin is going to do a 1000x from here than to say that Bitcoin is only going to do a 10x from here, right? As long as the network remains decentralized and secure, everyone in the world, from the richest billionaire to everyone who is impoverished around the world, are all going to want their own strategic reserve assets, and that's going to be Bitcoin.